Hi, everyone. I'm Summer,
I'm Carrie.
and this is Hopelexia Podcast.
Join us to talk about sex, drugs, and self-improvement.
It's crazy to me. Like, there's records and stuff like that, the CIA declassified stuff, and people will still argue and be like, "No, they never would do that. That's not what they meant to do." And it's literally in the file, like, this is what we were trying to do, and it's
Right.
exactly what we're talking about.
Yes, it says it outright, which I had to, when I worked at one law firm, I was assisting one of the senior attorneys with the project she was doing. And it required going through our archival material for for this Cheyenne and Arapaho reservation. And so the Department of Interior, the Indian agents, as they called them, wrote reports continually, right? Like on a schedule, and then sometimes letters and requests in between. So there's like volumes and volumes, a lot of paper trail. And I'm still legitimately traumatized from the stuff that I read, and how he would brag about. I say he. I actually went through several different agents, but the stuff they would brag about. This was during boarding school time frame that we were focused on. But yeah, so there's an argument that's tried to be made right now that they voluntarily sent their kids to school. But when you read the actual reports from the agents, you can track as they were literally reducing the amount of space that the people were allowed to hunt in, deliberately to try to keep them from hunting, because they were trying to force them to be farmers on land that is not suitable for farming because it didn't have irrigation. And western Oklahoma's not, out towards El Reno and stuff like that, and Concho, it's too dry. It doesn't. And so basically it was trying to force them to do this. This wasn't working. So at some point he formulated this wonderful plan to get them to send their kids to school, because he had reduced the amount that they could hunt until it was useless, and they literally could not hunt, pretty much couldn't hunt to feed themselves. And then of course crops weren't growing, so they were dependent on the commodities from the government. And so the ultimatum was, if you don't send your kids to the school, you don't get commodities and everybody starves to death. That's the voluntary attendance. And so anyhow, it was a lot of stuff like that in the industrial schools. A lot of people think about it like, oh, they were giving them an education. But in reality, a lot of times, like, the industrial schools were essentially work camps. It's like, we would call it a sweatshop if it was in an Asian country. Like, they would actually keep track in their reports about how much money they were making off of these kids, what they sold, how much they were paying the pastor of the ones. I guess they probably weren't pastors in all of the denominations, but you know what I mean. The
church people.
Yeah, the church officials, for the ones that were run by churches. Yeah, so it's pretty horrific, but yeah, it's all documented. And so when people try to argue with you about that, I'm like, do you actually not know, or are you just deliberately lying? Like, which one is it?
It drives me crazy, because anytime I've ever brought that up to anybody, they're like, well, they probably just faked that for propaganda. And I'm like, why would they fake something that makes them look bad?
Right, like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like, that, did you think
do you understand how propaganda works?
Like, I don't understand. And they're like, well, if it wasn't them faking it, then somebody else must have faked it that just, like, hates America and hates Jesus. And I'm like,
and hid it in the government's own archives. Is this a
And
Nicolas Cage movie? I don't.
and like those documents only get released like what, every few decades. Like they don't release them all at one time, and they
And
have
it
certain
depends
ones
on what
that,
it is too.
like, that doesn't make any sense. And it's on the CIA official like website. Like I don't. Nobody's hacking the CIA.
I mean, if they
I mean,
did, they probably would disappear.
yeah, we wouldn't know what happened to them. They would either start working for the CIA or be done so.
You know what I found interesting? Here's another ADHD tangent. So I was listening to an audiobook from this woman who grew up in a cult. I think it was called Uncultured. Anyhow, she grew up in a cult, then she joined the army after she left the cult, and she jokes about leaving one cult and joining another. Anyway, she was one of the first women in combat back in the day. So anyhow, she talks about in this process of career planning and stuff. They come, CIA comes and recruits people, and she makes mention that they told her that they particularly focus on missionary kids in CIA recruiting.
Is it because they already have a cult like mine and will just fall into place?
Partially, and they're used to moving a lot. They've usually got experience in moving into different places, so they have exposure to other, to living in cultures that are foreign to them and being disconnected from their own network. So they're easy to make disappear into the agency, and they don't have any normal healthy ties really. And I thought that was interesting.
So the CIA is an abusive ex-boyfriend, basically.
I mean, isn't the US government in general?
Yeah.
Actually, not even an ex-boyfriend.
A current
The
one.
the ones that keep you locked in the basement. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my native.
No, I like, as soon
Jumping
as you
out.
said that, I thought about, do you watch Bailey Sarian when she does like her murder mystery makeup?
Sometimes, yeah.
She just did one the other day, and I can't remember her name, but it was in like the 70s, and it was the guy that kidnapped a girl and put her head in a box, like a soundproof box, and kidnapped her, and then took her back to his house with his wife and child, and everybody knew about it, and made her his like sex slave, and like convinced her that there was like a BDSM organization for like sex slaves that was watching her, and they were like, if you ever try to escape, they're gonna find you and they're gonna hurt you and kill your family. And like, she believed him. Like, she was 20, 21, I think, when he kidnapped her, and like she ended up being there with them for like 5 years.
Oh,
And she went from like living in a box in like their basement to a box under the stairs to, he literally built a box under their waterbed, and she stayed under there.
thing.
Yeah. And like, it made me think of that.
But I mean, think about it. Why wouldn't you believe him? He's managed to kidnap you and put you in a fucking box. Like, and nobody's noticed and nobody's come to save you. Like, you don't know what else is possible.
And it was in like the 70s. So like, people didn't have cell phones, didn't have like GPS, didn't have any of that. So like, if you were gone, you were just gone. Like, and she had gone from like Washington or Oregon to California to go surprise a friend, and she was hitchhiking, and that's how they got her. So even more terrified of hitchhiking.
Hitchhiking, I know.
Terrified. But the US government ranked me as the person that kidnapped her, and we're the person that's living in a box under the bed. She's fine now. She got out, and she's still alive, and she's done a lot of therapy. So
What happened to him?
he went to prison.
He's alive.
Yeah, he might
Damn.
be called out this year. Yeah.
So he needs to disappear.
I agree. I agree. He's a garbage human being. He's
I say
absolutely
this. I like to announce who I think should be dead when I have like an existential crisis over my son killing a spider.
Listen, the spider didn't do anything wrong, but this man did.
True, very true. But they were laughing at me because my older two sons came over to help me move furniture the other day, and he found a giant fiddleback spider, brown recluse,
They're so creepy.
living about 6 inches from where I put my head at night when I'm sleeping. And so he goes to kill it. I'm like, no, no, no. He's like, well, what the hell do you want me to do with it, Mom? You can't just sleep here with it right here. I'm like, okay, do what you have to do, but don't tell me. So I can't even, like, I can't even deal with the reality that the spider has to go. But I'm like ready to execute people.
Maybe he was protecting you.
I don't know.
Maybe he was protecting you from death threats and things. Maybe he was a guardian of some sort.
Well, he's gone now, so I'm fucked.
Maybe he has a family living outside.
Oh my goodness. I hope something's protecting me.
I hope there's a guardian family of fiddlebacks out there, but that they don't come inside the house or bother you.
Oh, yeah, if they can stay outside there, I will not bother them.
That's where they belong.
That's
As long as
fine.
they're not in my space, we can vibe and be friends. Just
Yeah,
stay out there away from me and don't come close to me because I'll cry.
right. See, I'm not even afraid of them. I'm fine with it, but like, you know,
You're
logically, I can't just let it live right there, waiting for it to bite my face.
I mean,
Um,
I am
yeah.
terrified of spiders, and I will cry if it gets near me.
How do you feel about snakes?
I love them. They're great.
Even
I don't
venomous
understand it.
snakes?
I love snakes. Every time we go to a pet store that has one that you can like hold, I'm like, give him to me, please. I want to play with him and love him. And it's my favorite. The spiders, no. I think it's because they're small and can just like disappear.
Oh, so then
And the way
there's
they
the
walk is
unknown.
creepy. I don't like the way they walk. No. I also don't like all the eyes.
Oh, the eyes bother
No. Not a fan. Don't like
you?
it.
That's funny. Yeah, so my daughter got bit by a snake. Have I talked about that on here?
No, but you told me about it.
Oh my God. Okay, now, bless her heart. Okay, so for anybody who hasn't heard the previous videos, she was born with psychopathy, okay? So when her behavior makes when her behavior makes no sense, I need you to remember that. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder. They do not have the same fear reaction that we do, okay?
Just not it.
So as it turns out, she had a stash of stuff that she had stolen because that's what she does. She makes a sport out of breaking into the main house and stealing whatever she can just for fun to drive me crazy. And so she had a stash of stolen stuff hidden in tall grass. We live in a clearing in the woods with a pond 50 yards from my front door. Okay. So whereas there is a very high likelihood at any given moment of us having a venomous snake in the yard.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. So you pay attention, right? And I have my kids' entire lives. Every spring we go over, snake safety, identification, all that. So it's not that she doesn't know the information, but because she doesn't have a normal fear response, she's not afraid of it. So she's out in the dark. She didn't turn on a light because, as I said, this was stolen stuff and she didn't want anyone to know where she had it hid. So she's out rummaging around in the dark with no shoes on in this tall grass. She gets bit on the side of her foot. No, she's fine. It only swelled up to the ankle, so it was a mostly dry bite. She's fine. But the amazing thing here is because she has psychopathy, for one, she did not have a normal fear reaction. She knew, because we go over this all the time about snakes and safety, she knew rationally and logically this can be dangerous. This burning that I'm feeling is not normal. So she came and told me, and I took her to the ER, and we did all the things. Even during all of this, with a fucking snake bite, she still had low blood pressure, low resting blood pressure, which is actually, in case anybody doesn't know, low resting blood pressure is a common characteristic among people with psychopathy. That's why they don't get stressed like we do, so they don't die from stress-induced diseases.
And they could pass a polygraph if they're not like admissible, but they could pass.
Right, because they don't have that same because we don't think about it a lot, but fear is more than just an emotion. It has physiological symptoms, right? The increased blood pressure, sometimes people will sweat, you'll have all these things. She showed none of that. So like I've never actually seen a genuine fear response from her, which is fascinating from a, arm's length
scientific standpoint.
Yeah. It's really interesting from that.
No, I don't want it.
Right. And but the thing where I'm going with this is because they don't have a fear response, she's still not afraid of getting bit by the snake. So like she is still out wandering around constantly with no shoes on. The next day, while she's still swollen up and having trouble walking, was outside with no shoes on looking for the snake.
What's she gonna do? Don't tell me. I don't want to know.
She wanted
bad things to animals. I don't know.
She wanted to tell me what kind of snake it was.
I don't believe it.
I don't. Well, that's what she said, because she told me she did find a snake over there in that area, and she described it to me. She described a water moccasin. I mean, potentially it could be, I don't know, but that was what she said she was wanting was to be able to tell me what kind it was. I don't know. Okay.
I have doubts.
There's as good a chance of that being untrue as true. I never really know.
Water moccasins are they're scary.
They're not that bad. I've watched where they've done like experiments with venomous snakes to see what it takes to get them to bite. And very often they have to be like stepped on, picked up, things like that before they'll actually bite. And I think she probably stepped on this one just because of where it bit her on the side of the foot. It looked like where if you step on them and they turn back on you. So she was probably stepping on it and hurting it. So it gave her a warning strike.
I would bite too if somebody stepped on me.
Yeah, fair.
Well, I was in my house and somebody stepped on me. Bite.
Right, because it was nighttime. The thing was like laid up for the night. Minding its own business. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's always interesting. It's fascinating from, like I said, from like a scientific aspect to watch this and see how her brain works. But on the other hand, it's terrifying because I'm like, how do I keep this child alive?
Real.
When she has no self-preservation instinct, really.
I wonder what would happen. Do you know, like those portable heart rate monitors they give people to like wear? I wonder if hers would just be like barely like bumpy at all, like if she wore it for like a week or something.
I don't know. I know when she's been in the hospital, because she's been. We've had a few stints of sitting in the ER waiting for them to find acute care beds, and during those times they have they'll have her hooked up to the monitor, and it's constantly setting the alarm off for low blood pressure.
I wonder like what would happen if she had one of the portable ones, because one of my friends had one in college because she has a heart condition where like her heart will like pound so hard you can see like the muscles in her chest move.
Oh wow.
And so she was wearing a heart monitor. I don't remember what she has. but she had like medications and stuff she had to take for it. And I remember like vividly right before she had to get the heart monitor to wear for like a month, she had an episode outside while we were playing volleyball, and I was with her, and she just like went down while we were playing. And I like ran over her and I was like, "Is it your heart?" And she said, "Yeah." And I sprinted up the hill, like massive hill, and up like 4 flights of stairs because I didn't want to wait for the elevator to get to her room to get her meds and take them down to her. And she had like really light like bruising, like yellowish on her chest because it was so bad. But she had a real hard
Wow.
a month, and you could see like after that you could see like all the spikes from when she would have episodes. It was insane. And I feel like
Wow.
I feel like if your daughter had one, it would be just like a straight line.
It might be pretty low, yeah, until she, like, because the only time I've seen her with what looks like evidence of raised heart rate, where you're kind of like, you know what I mean, like flushing and stuff, and you get the increased blood flow, and is like when she's actively raging.
I mean, that would do it.
And I hate to use that word. I want to be clear with people. It's not like a uncontrolled emotional outburst. It's a intentional rage. Like the difference is rage has to be directed at someone. When it comes from somebody with rage, has to have a target. They don't do that when it's coming just from psychopathy. They don't do that because it's different than being overwhelmed with emotion and having to get that out. It's a different thing altogether.
Kind of like when those crazy dudes get mad at their Xbox because it lags, and then they break the whole thing and throw their controller through a window, and then just destroy the room.
Those are that's right. That's an emotional outburst generally. But I have seen it happen where when we talk about like a directed rage, it's more like when an abuser gets mad and punches the wall as a way to show you what they can do, and it's not really because they're out of control, and they wouldn't have done that if you weren't there. It's more like that. So I have seen the Xbox smash happen for the same reason as the drywall punch, but yeah, it'd be. So, but when she is doing that, she will have increased heart rate, but that's probably more of the result of the physical exertion, I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. She's so wild. I also want to know what it would look like if she wore one of those like brain monitors for a while when they measure like your brain activity. I wonder, because you said like psychopaths have like a different, like a type of brainwave that most people don't have.
The P3 brainwave, they have a suppressed reaction in the P3.
Yeah.
The P3 is the brainwave where the amygdala recognizes like danger even before your thinking brain can register it, right? So that's the part that goes crazy for those of us who have like PTSD, right? And we get triggered by things that are definitely not, are not dangerous. Like I get triggered by fucking iced tea because iced tea I was drinking iced tea at the, at the time of one of my really traumatic events. Obviously, iced tea is very unlikely to harm me, but my brain.
For me.
Right. So that brain wave that says, oh, this is associated with danger, for us would be a heightened P3 response, right? So like in Dr. Keel's book, The Psychopath Whisperer, he gives the example of he and a friend went hiking, they took the dog and they heard this strange sound, didn't recognize what it was. Then suddenly a baby rattlesnake is attached to the vest that the dog is wearing. What it turned out to be was it was so small, the rattles weren't fully formed yet, so it didn't make the normal sound. So then further up nobody's hurt. They move on up the trail. They hear the same sound, and they realize they're all reacting before they even registered what it was. They're all reacting to get away from it because that P3 brainwave has already told them, hey. Well, in psychopaths, when they do the functional MRIs, they've noticed a different, like it's a muted response for some, where it just doesn't activate as drastically as it would for everyone else. But some, there's even a negative P3. So their brain literally is not registering it as danger at all. And so that's why some of them will take very, very risky, engage in risky behavior, because they're not seeing it as risky. They just don't have that same reaction. And so that's also why they don't have the same fear response, because that comes out of the amygdala too, is they're just not, they don't become fearful from the same things or necessarily to the same degree as the rest of us.
I think your daughter and my roommate should both just wear the brainwave monitors for a little bit.
I would like to put them both in a functional MRI and take a look at the brain responses to things. I think it would be fascinating. Like I said, like this will be very, very interesting to me in a few years.
Yeah,
when she's grown and moved out. But yeah, so right now I'm torn between it's interesting, and I like learning how her brain works to help, accommodate that and try to help set her up for a successful life. But then on the other hand, knowing is like terrifying, because I'm like, literally, how do I keep this child alive when she doesn't even register when things are a danger to her?
Yeah, like she got freaking bit by a snake. I would have a heart attack if I got bit by a snake and
Right.
freaking out, because you don't know it's not poisonous or venomous until you go get it looked at. Like, because if you don't know what a snake is, you have to assume it's venomous.
Well, non-venomous snakes don't have the fangs, so you wouldn't even have the 2 punctures.
I mean, yeah.
Because the ones that have teeth have tiny teeth, so you would have more. So you would have a different bite pattern. But there's also, I
got bit.
Right. And you wouldn't be out wandering around with no shoes after that, right? Like, we would probably have to drag you out of the house the first time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. But she doesn't register that. And she's not allowed any devices or anything, although, we do know she has a stolen phone that I haven't been able to find. But the reason she doesn't have devices is because she goes online and she seeks out predatory adults. Now, she has catfished other people, like other adults, but I've noticed a pattern of she will particularly seek out predatory adults who know she is a child and are looking for that, because they will buy her things. And because they know she's a child, she can use that to kind of blackmail them, because she has the leverage of, I can turn you in. You had me send you pictures. And so
of a psychopath versus a pedophile is just,
it's interesting. Yeah. And it's terrifying. And it's like, yes, I know she's being manipulative. I can't talk. Manipulative, yes. And no, she shouldn't do that, whatever. And yes, they're exploiting her and all of that, yes. But the underlying concern that gets really terrifying is she doesn't recognize the danger. Like, she doesn't recognize that as playing with fire. And it doesn't matter how many times you explain it to her or show her other instances. In her mind, which again goes into the narcissism and all of that, she is in full control of the situation. So it can't be dangerous.
And even if a bad thing did happen, would she even like understand that it's a bad thing happening? Like,
It depends on what the thing is.
logically, she would probably know, like, if she got like I hope this never happens, but if she got like kidnapped or like assaulted or something, like, would she, like, I know she would know logically, but like, would she like,
I think it depends on what it is. Okay. So she is very, very high on oppositional traits. Okay. So if they like forcefully kidnapped her, it would be a problem, right? Because this isn't my idea. I didn't agree to this. So you can't tell me what to do, right? So she would probably, I would speculate, register that as an issue. Probably not fully appreciated for the danger, but more from the defiance angle of how fucking dare you.
yeah.
And so be outraged on that end. But would she register being groomed and taught a kidnapping where they groom you and get you to agree to leave?
Yeah.
No, I don't think she would register that as a problem at all.
Yeah, because
she would see it as her idea, her making an adult decision to go do what she wants.
Because I feel
and
like
not
pedophiles pretty much have like the same lack of empathy. Maybe not like, I mean, I would argue they're psychopaths, but maybe not like diagnosable, like because they don't meet like the criteria and don't have all of the same things. But just like in my brain,
well, there's also sociopaths too. Remember, who have the
yeah.
lower level of empathy, and there is there is some overlap there for sure, because there are a lot of pedophiles who do offend against children who don't have any empathy for their victims. I had
or,
one
like, in general, like
right. I had one client, one social work client one time who had come in, and we were going over, all the things that he needed. And he, in the midst of all this, because I am just apparently have the face that people tell all their deepest, darkest secrets to in the first time they meet you, decides to tell me. So this is really hard to say because I struggled with this when he was in the room with me even. He had molested a family member, a child, had given her hepatitis, did not understand why everybody was still mad at him because he apologized. He said he was sorry.
I mean, if you say you're sorry.
Yeah, like zero empathy at all. So there is definitely an overlap in those two groups in some places.
It's just crazy, like the people you come across and like just everyday life that you would never think of. Like I remember when I first started doing social work, I was observing somebody do an interview, and we were in one of those like tiny interview rooms. I'm sure you remember. And we had someone come in, and he was like really laid back, like posture, and just like really relaxed in the situation, but like his voice was very like firm and like aggressive, and it was weird seeing like the difference like in his body and the way he was talking. And he told us like in the middle that he had just gotten out of prison, didn't tell us what for because we didn't have to know, but told us he just got out of prison. And so we were like working on stuff with him and like getting it, and it was just like very uncomfortable the whole time. And then as we were finishing up and he was getting ready to go, I stood up to like go open the door to like just let him out because I was sitting in front of it. And he gets like super close to me and looks at me, like down at me, like in my shirt and stuff, and was like, "I'll see you later." And I was like, "No, absolutely fucking not." And then being nosy, of course, we looked on the TOC, and he had been in prison for domestic violence, serial assault, aggravated assault and battery, like with deadly weapons, anything violent you could think of, it was on his record. And I was like, sick, love that. I hope he never comes back.
Right.
I was like, and you wouldn't like have thought it like looking at him. But that's, yep. It
Yeah.
was terrifying. Like,
Well, and I think that's one thing you mentioned you wouldn't have thought it looking at him. I think that's one
they're very
common,
unassuming. Like,
and I think that's one of the problems in the general population is they think they have these stereotypes about what offenders look like. And
I think when I say like you wouldn't have thought that just like looking at him, I think it was more like his like posture and like the way he carried himself, because it was very like non-aggressive and non-threatening. Like he was very laid back and just like chill, but it was just like his voice and like the way he would look at you was like an animal looking at prey.
right, which is why I do appreciate the fact that grooming is becoming a concept that more people understand and that's talked about more, because I do think, I haven't looked at the numbers, but I would speculate that more offenders get their victims by grooming than by overt force. Just because, like a numbers game, you're going to be more successful as as a groomer, especially if you're not able to violently overpower everybody that you're trying, you know what I mean? And especially like when it comes to pedophiles and things like that, you're very much at the mercy of, are they going to tell? Right. And so that's where grooming comes in.
They like you. Like,
right.
There was another like serial killer, not serial killer. He was a pedophile. It was like a docuseries, I think, and he had been like a karate coach, I think, with a bunch of like teenage boys, like younger teenage boys, like 12, 13, and he would like groom them and like become friends with the family, and the family would be like, yeah, totally, you can take the kids out for like bowling and ice cream or whatever. And then so he would do that, and then he would, groom all the boys, even families, and then like assault them, and the kids would never tell because like, that's so and so, like he would never hurt me. Like they just set themselves up for like success, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Way to phrase that. It made me feel gross saying it, but I can't think of another phrase. Like,
right, but to succeed at their goal, to accomplish what they're trying to do, it is.
It felt icky in my chest.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And to be sure you never miss an upload, make sure you turn your notifications on. And please come join us on social media so we can continue these conversations in between episodes. You'll find us at Hypoxia Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.